do men want?
Manifests itself in relationships, and you feel it in relationships, and they can be very powerful spiritually. And if that's what you need, that's what you should go for.
And she said, oh, I'm going to go do a sweat lodge this evening. And I begged her to take me along, and that was about 6 years ago.
Welcome to Speaking of Men. You're watching public access television from Albuquerque, New Mexico. I'm your host, Mike Rivas. Our host in the studio today is, or our guest in the studio today is Captain Spencer Singleton of the United States Air Force. He's Chief of Social Actions at Kirtland Air Force Base. And this is the second of a two-part series in which we're talking about the dynamics of sexual harassment. Considering this is a two-part program, let's quickly review our last show if you want to for viewers who may have missed it. And maybe you just give us a little definition, a little idea of the prevalence, typical instances, penalties, that kind of thing.
All right. Sexual harassment is basically a subcategory of sex discrimination, and it becomes a grave matter when it impacts upon a person's career, advancement in that career, advancement in their position, and when an environment, a hostile environment is created in such that an individual cannot work optimally without facing sexual jokes, sexual comments, and those type things.
And this is it's obviously prevalent enough that we've had to pass laws to deal with it. Enough women are angry that we've had to put some, through the EEOC, put some things in place. Give me, let's just take typical instances, get the spectrum from one end to the other for our viewers real quick.
Okay. Sexual harassment can take the form of physical abuse, sexual assault. On the extreme end, we're looking at rape as a case of sexual harassment. And it can go as low as, on the spectrum, as verbal comments, negative verbal comments, according to sex.
So it'd be anything from sexual assault just down to somebody making the workplace miserable for somebody who's there trying to do a job and make a living. And the penalties, I think you mentioned, were anything from, I think the court set a limit, you said, of $300,000.
$300,000 in punitive damages. Person could get back pay. Individual could end up fired from their lucrative position in a company. It could go all the way down to a letter of reprimand or admonishment or even a verbal reprimand, depending on the severity of the incident.
You know, we were talking in the last program about the fact that if men and women are willing to learn to communicate, what we have here is an opportunity for men and women to explore new frontiers in male-female relationships. I mean, to have working partners side by side. What do you think some of the baggage and underlying beliefs or value systems are that are holding us back from being able to achieve that?
Okay. I think our traditional values are a negativism when it comes to men and women working in the workplace. I.e., as a male, we view, the old traditional view is that women should be home, they should be caring for their children, they should be homemakers, making sure that that house is ready and in good shape for the husband when he comes home. And the husband is the breadwinner. He's the individual that's out in the workplace, that's that's making the hard decisions, that's making the hard calls out there and bringing home the bread. And that's the traditional view of women-men relationships. Now you have women in the workplace, and some men have a hard time of really letting go of those traditional values, and it can become a stumbling block when it comes to if you have a man in that position in a position of authority who has that type of view, a woman who's totally qualified may end up not getting promoted for a job that she's qualified for.
That whole attitude of seeing women and children as property, you know, that is just, it's amazing, and it's there. I think it's because we don't discuss it like you and I are doing tonight, and because it's not discussed, it never comes to light, and those things just possess us. They're attitudes that just possess us because we never question them. We have a short public service announcement from our producer that we would like to urge you to watch, and we hope you will stay with us because Captain Singleton and I will be right back.
In September 1990, William J. Scott began looking for his son Billy, whom he hadn't seen in more than 6 years. Unknown to William, Billy also began a search for his father a few weeks later. In early December, Billy Scott appeared with us on Speaking of Men, hoping to get the word to his father. If you know William J. Scott, won't you help us reunite them? Here's what we know about Billy's father. William J. Scott was reported to have been living in the Albuquerque area for the past 5 years. He's 31 years old, 6 foot 1 inches tall, with brown hair and blue eyes. He may have been working in a local sawmill or lumber yard, though he may be contemplating a move to Alaska. If you have any idea where William J. Scott is, please tell him to call me, Mike Krachowski, at 268-5260, and we'll find a way to get father and son together again.
Every day, all over America, thousands of abused and neglected children fall through the cracks of our court and foster care systems. They are often misplaced or forgotten, robbed of their chance for the future. You can help by becoming a court-appointed special advocate, a child's voice in court. Be a CASA volunteer. Speak up for a child.
The animals in the forest. If they could talk, what would they say? They might say, be careful with fire in the forest. Just like Smokey says, only you can prevent forest fires.
Welcome back to Speaking of Men. I'm your host, Mike Rivas. Our guest in the studio today is Captain Spencer Singleton of the United States Air Force. And we're talking about the impact of sexual harassment on the workplace and its dynamics. Captain, what are the practical effects of overlooking sexual harassment? I know the Japanese just had their first major sexual harassment lawsuit. What's going to happen if we don't deal with this?
If we don't deal with sexual harassment now in the 90s, we're looking at going into year 2000 unprepared to take the marketplace. We're going to be unprepared to tap into the enormous amount of talent that exists among the female population in this country. In the year 2000, it's been predicted that the majority of the workforce is going to be women and minorities. And if our companies are unable to prepare environments where these people can work and put out fully, then we're going to lose out quite a bit, and we're going to fall behind as far as the economic situation goes in the world.
And now Workforce 2000 is an actual project that's trying to deal with that. Is that correct? Or
Workforce 2000 was basically a survey or report that has been put together, a trend analysis type thing that was put together by one of the major companies here, that deal with statistics.
right?
And they have predicted, and it's basically a prediction that the workforce will be more women and minorities in the year 2000.
Well, that certainly makes sense to me. Let's. What we're talking about is communications and getting some new visions and frontiers. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Okay. We definitely need a new vision, and the vision is cooperative, win-win. Let's work together as a team in order to pull this country into the place where it deserves to be. We're talking about individuals being able to communicate across cultural lines, across racial lines, across female-male lines in order to create a more cooperative atmosphere. In the Japanese culture, one of the things that they do is they really thrive on the win-win type situations. In fact, in their baseball games, they've gone as far as to exonerate or lift up the tie game. A tie game is considered the best game you could have in the Japanese baseball. And this whole thing is the kind of atmosphere that they create there, the kind of feelings about the teamwork and working together. I think that's something we can use in this country. I really do.
We we talked a little bit about this on the phone last night, not to depart too much from our agenda, but now then most American families are where you have the whole family intact, both people work. So it seems almost the ideal thing would be married to the person you work with, I guess, wouldn't it?
That sure would. That would be great because the chances of sexual harassment happening in a situation like that would be about nil, because the individuals are a team already. I mean, they've married, they know each other, they know how to communicate, they've learned how to communicate and how to accomplish things through teamwork.
And they've got a common goal, and that's survival of their family.
Exactly.
I think that it must be, some of it at least must be a skewed value system, because if a woman is married, she's got the ring on her hand, and she's coming down, and even if she, well, I know secretaries who run companies for all practical purposes, probably make major decisions sometimes, but no matter what her job is, she's got a commitment that the men who are working with down there should honor.
Sure.
And one of the things if she's being sexually harassed and has to take that home to her husband and pull the boss into it as well, there's a major problem there. I wonder why men are just not conscious or more conscious than that. It's power, I guess, is what you're saying.
It's really a power trip, and men as well as women in positions of power, knowingly or unknowingly, really thrive on exhibiting that power in the form of sexual harassment, by trying to exact sexual favors, trying to really extort individuals into doing something with them sexually in order to advance in the company.
Or just drive them away from the job.
Right, drive them away, make them feel bad, whatever.
I think that people in American companies are going to have to get to the point where the actual people in management realize that it's important for everybody on the team to win.
Exactly.
Everybody, and not be, obviously somebody's being threatened by somebody else's success in a situation like that.
Exactly.
It's the fear that there's not enough to go around, and that's that lack of communication and ability to set common goals for the company to win. They point out the fact that a lot of American corporations and businesses are losing out in the world market because management does not have the long-term commitment to the company to steward and guide it down the road for 20 years or 25 years. They're interested in getting in there, showing the bottom line profit, having that golden parachute in place, shutting down companies that are going to make them look bad, rather than to make the time investment and making sure that everybody wins in the situation. That's human.
Exactly.
You know, that's human values, and that's
Exactly.
what we're talking about trying to have, you know.
In America, the traditional value is we like heroes in America. We like the shining knight. We like the success story. We like to see the individual achievement, and there's nothing wrong with that. But individual achievement should be geared toward that individual achievement should somehow tie into team achievement. And that's where we've lost out.
That's what that film Top Gun was about. It was about, if you remember with Tom Cruise, it's him going from trying to be a hot shot to learning how to be part of the team.
Exactly. Not diminishing his skills. They need his skills.
Right.
But working them in conjunction with the team in order so the team can advance. And that's kind of what we need to look at as far as America is concerned. My boss has a phrase. He says WIIFM, what's in it for me? And that's kind of the attitude that most people have, as you were saying it. They want to see how much they can get out of it. If it means stepping on someone's toes or firing someone needlessly or whatever it takes for them to get that gold ring, then that's what they do. And we're going to have to change our focus.
Right. Yeah, to win as a people, that's for sure. Let me see what I've got here next. We were competition and fear drives some men, you know, as more and more women, because women are sharp as tacks and real good at communication, and this scares a lot of guys. And you know, for me, this whole concept that the sexes, you know, that sexes are somehow divided and in some sort of a battle. I don't know how it is in the military, but I've talked to a lot of my friends who are women, and they feel that in the last 10 years or so that because of the attitudes men have had, they've had to withdraw from the relationship on a certain level, you know, to begin to get power and control of their lives and to get men to wake up a little bit. So I guess there is some divisions there that we're trying to heal. So do you feel that there is any kind of a backlash in place, or do you think it's just noodleism on the part of guys? They just don't think about it. I mean, it's hard for me to think that there's any kind of a conscious conspiracy on the part of men as a whole to do a job on women in the workplace. Do you have any views on that?
My opinion is that there's not an all-out war between men and women. What you have is, and you've always had, scarce resources. Let's say resources, in this case, jobs, top jobs.
Okay.
And you have a pool of people out there competing for those jobs, basically doing whatever they need to do to get those jobs. Prior to the enormous amount of women in the workplace, you still had that same thing going on, but you had a network among the males who dominated the workplace. And if you could get into a certain clique, network your way into a particular job, then that's what you did to get in. Well, you can see how hard it would be for a female to come along now and try to network herself into this, I guess for lack of a better phrase, good old boy network. It's very tough. But what you have is jobs, resources out there, and you have competition for those scarce resources. And men are, whether it's another man that comes along that's more qualified or appears to be a threat to them, or a woman that comes along that appears to be a threat to their livelihood or their job, then you're going to have some confrontations. You're going to have some, I guess, games, if you will, individuals trying to outsmart the other in order to keep what they have and that type of thing. Right. It just compounded when you get a female into the picture, and now you have these other traditional stereotypes playing out in the workplace.
You know, women are real good at networking. Sure. And can put together organizations. You know, I mean, they can get organized and a lot quicker than men can, it seems like. Once they know what they're trying to do and where they're trying to go. Well, I guess change is going to be slow coming.
Sure.
But it's going to come.
Sure. I mean, you know, we didn't get this way overnight, and it's going to take a while. And we're making changes. A lot of companies have instituted human relations training. They realize the importance of it. The Air Force, for an instance, example, has instituted human relations training. They're not only doing it, but they're now enhancing it, doing more of it, because they see how important it is in creating the type of environment that is a win-win and that is productive.
We have a short tape coming up in which we're going to be running our community activities and bulletin board for you. So check out upcoming events. Stay with us. Spencer Singleton and I will be back with you in just a couple of minutes. Welcome back to Speaking of Men. I'm your host, Mike Rivas. Our guest in the studio is Captain Spencer Singleton of the United States Air Force. And we're talking about sexual harassment, and it's dynamic. What role do you feel women can play, positive role that women might be able to play in dealing with sexual harassment in the workplace?
Okay. I think there's a very important role that women can play. Oftentimes, individuals, again, because of their traditional values and mindsets, it's not because they're not trying to change or want to change, it's just that it's a slow process. And sometimes these men play back old tapes, if you will, of their life and how they feel that women should be. In situations like that, where a comment comes out or a joke is done or something has happened, and the woman is upset about it or offended, I think what the woman can do is bring that to the attention of the individual immediately. Let it be known that, hey, you know, this offends me. That may be all it takes to get some situation squared away. The man may realize that, oh, wow, I didn't really even mean that. You know, sorry about that, and really go on and not make that mistake again. It just becomes a problem when sometimes women don't address the issue at the time it happens. They don't attempt to mediate or talk about it, and eventually, instead of trying that step, getting the thing squared away in the early stages, it develops into a complaint.
What we're really talking about here is the attempt to develop a code of ethics.
Sure.
You know, for that men and women can use in the workplace to get the job done, that allows each to be a human being.
Exactly.
Setting of boundaries is a big deal in modern pop psychology, as it were. A lot of people talk about being able to do that. America, you know, you guys were mentioning that you guys in your organizational Kirtland also deal with problems with drug and alcohol abuse,
Sure.
that kind of thing. A lot of Americans, I'm sure it's true in the military also, in the private sector, just don't have a lot of communications and people skills. They did not get them when they were kids.
That's right.
You know.
That's right.
And there's no place really that you can go to get those if your mom and dad didn't give them to you, or if you haven't been to college and taken some courses
Exactly.
on it or looked into it. Well, we were talking about the fact that we're down to about 3 minutes, so we talked about the fact that that false allegations do happen,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a real minority of the cases, isn't it? I mean.
Exactly. And, you know, a lot of times when we talk about false allegations, what we're really talking about is a situation where a person has put themselves in a position to have a complaint lodged against them, right. i.e. a supervisor going out on dates with a subordinate. A mutual agreement, however, later on, one of the people turns sour or the relationship turns sour, and now the individual's like, well, I'm going to file a sexual harassment complaint.
And this does happen.
It does happen.
Right. If somebody, we're down to about 2 minutes. If somebody thought they had a problem, how would they assess that? How would they go about filing a complaint? How would they go about figuring, do they have a problem or not?
Okay. First of all, a person really knows when they've been sexually harassed, because if they feel uncomfortable and they feel that they've been put down and so forth, they know it. And at that point, they need to try to make an attempt to identify it at that instant to the individual. If that doesn't work and the harassment doesn't stop, then they need to go to that person's superior. If it doesn't stop there, then they need to make sure they're aware of the company's rules and regulations regarding how to file a complaint. And file that complaint, go through the process, use their chain of authority. And if that fails, they can also go to the public sector, get a lawyer, go to court, or they can file their complaint with the Equal Employment Opportunities Commission.
So, so what you're saying basically is to make an attempt to solve the problem yourself.
Yes. Try to solve it at the lowest level possible.
Right. And people are not completely unreasonable. We are down to the last minute here, and I'd like to thank Captain Singleton for coming on the program with us this evening, and we hope that we've given you guys and ladies out there some food for thought. Sexual harassment is just not something you do. You know, be gentlemen about things. We would urge you to take a look at the number at the end of the program. Give us a call and give us some input. Give us ideas for programs. We'd love to have you with us. If you've got an upcoming event, let us know so we can get it on the calendar of events, our bulletin board. This is Mike Rivas for Speaking of Men, and this is Captain Spencer Singleton. Thank you very much for joining us. Keep your powder dry. Bye-bye.